Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of Tell Me Everything. I am your host, Danielle Spinelli. And if you have not already gotten the news, big announcement. We are now part of the Broker Care Summit Freight Talk Network. How exciting, right? Let's take this thing to the next level. Let's go. No, super excited. And this episode that's going to be coming out is going to be with one of the most amazing guys I've ever met. He has a background that is like insane. And part of what we're going to be talking about is like, just like how cool is this guy? How come he's even in logistics and not out fighting bad guys in Baghdad or, is Baghdad like one of the bad places? I don't even know. It shows you how much with the world news I keep up with. Too busy with all this fraud in the US. By the way, I posted on LinkedIn today, but I'm going to throw this in here. But I posted about a guy having a heist on his truck. How insane is that? So I wonder if Genlogs is able to find any details on that. I'll have to ask him and see if we can throw that in at the end of the podcast. Anyways, let me give you a little bit of run through about Ryan, because you guys are going to just love him. So Ryan Joyce is the CEO of Genlogs. And he's going to talk about a lot of his background whenever he comes on. But he has basically developed this freight intelligence platform that uses cameras throughout the US that videos the roadways all day long and really just has AI in the background that detects like, okay, this is an actual tractor trailer. This is the MC. They grab 3 different images of the trucks that drive by. So imagine the amount of work that goes into that. He'll talk about a little bit, and I know other podcasts he's talked about it too, but like so interesting and like what a great way to find theft, right? Like it's like not only preventatively, but like let's say something happens. Ryan does a great job at like if something does happen, reach out to him, send him all the information of who that carrier was that you booked, and hopefully your shipper has some images of that too, so that way he can try to hunt them down on the roads and get your shipment back. He's done it before, so can do it again. Anyways, Genlogs, they unlock the carrier capacity. They combat fraud. They combat theft. They show a lot of like coast to coast lanes. So it's a lot more than the fraud part. Obviously, that's super important. But it also goes into sourcing for carriers and shippers, which what a great idea on that point. They're coming out with port cameras too. So that's going to be huge for all those, drayage and, trying to find shippers that haul from this to that. Like you can watch the whole process come through. Yeah, previously spent 15 years in the U.S. intelligence community, and he'll even talk about how his dad was part of Top Gun and like was part of was in the Pentagon when the Pentagon hit with 9/11. What? Like it's just his whole life is like super cool. He just got married, so congrats to him. I know I said that on there. But he likes to talk about, joke about, I should say, he likes to joke about how he used to track terrorists and now he's tracking all these trucks and all these fraudulent guys, really. Stuff that I love to hear. I hear about all the time on the conference circuit. I'm hoping this gets out to more people than just that go to conferences, because what he's doing is really groundbreaking. Genlogs is also partnered with vetting platforms. So you'll see them on Carrier Sure. I believe they're on Highway. And then on my care portal, that's going to be coming out here shortly as well. All right. So here we go.
Tell me everything. Tell me everything.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on to my episode of Tell Me Everything. How are you?
Doing great. How are you doing, Danielle?
I'm good. I know it's been a minute since I've like seen you in person, I feel like.
I know I have not been on the conference circuit as much. I got married about 3 months ago, and I've been trying to do like the first few months at home, being a good husband. But you'll see me out there again come this fall.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, let's do it.
That's awesome. Where do you live at?
Well, I relocated from Washington, D.C. down to Richmond, Virginia, where my wife was working. So I'm there for the foreseeable future. We're kind of figuring out next steps.
Yeah.
And then, but Richmond, Virginia is it's a cool town, up and coming. And it also got a lot of great transportation here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you got 3 different rail
A lot
lines
of
that
rail.
pass through here. You got Estes Express on the LTL side and a few other full truckload carriers and brokerages out of here. I know that a lot of our brokerage customers have offices in the Richmond area. I was wearing a JB Hunt hat the other day, and someone stopped me at the Chipotle I was at saying, "Hey, I work at JB Hunt." So they're here too.
Yeah. They're everywhere. I feel like JB Hunt's so big that they're literally all over the place.
They probably are every single place. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I've been to Richmond. It's funny. I went on when I was 21, me and my girlfriend, I live in Georgia, and we did a big, like, we're 21, we're doing a road trip on our own. Like, let's just whatever. So we hit up Richmond first, then it was DC, then New York, back down to Richmond. and then back home. But Richmond's a fun like college town too. It's like a fun like nightlife.
It is, yeah. They got great breweries here, which I'm a big IPA drinker. So there's a nonstop plethora of places I can try out.
That's so fun. Well, cool. Well, congratulations on getting married. That's very exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
pumped.
Awesome. So tell me, I know I'll kind of do your intro beforehand, but tell me a little bit more about your background. I kind of want to dig into that a little bit more, get to know like the real Ryan behind the scenes of all the cool things that you do. So tell
Yeah.
me like, how did you grow up? Kind of like, tell me your life story. Tell me everything.
Oof. Yeah,
Yeah.
life story. So let's take
Right.
it back to those early 80s where I was born in
Right.
San Diego, California, actually, to a Navy dad. And so I was the first of four. We started popping out in California, where my dad was actually flying F-14 fighter jets for the Navy. And
Hmm.
just a quick aside, that's super cool story is my dad was going through Top Gun when a journalist asked if he could shadow a few guys going through Top Gun. So my dad and three others were
What?
shadowed. This journalist ended up writing a series of stories about my dad and these other guys going through that Aviation Magazine published under the title Top Guns. And then Paramount bought the rights to that story and wrote the
No
screenplay
way.
Top Gun off of my dad and three others going through.
No
And
way.
yeah,
That
as
is
if it
cool.
wasn't cool enough, my dad actually went back to Top Gun as an instructor a few years
Wow.
later when they were filming it. And so he actually does a lot of the flying scenes in the movie where they would hand him, the goose helmet for the day, and he
Yeah.
would throw it on while he was out there flying. And so that's my dad in a lot of those
What?
flying scenes, and it's written off of him and three others going through. So
That's
that
really
was
cool.
me growing up in a Navy family. We moved around every 2 years. That led up to the high school, where I was actually a senior in high school at the time, living in the Washington, D.C. area,
Okay.
where my dad was now posted in the Pentagon. And the plane actually hit his office on September 11th, and he
No
narrowly
way.
made it out alive that day. So, I mean, it was literally the entire wing collapsed into the inferno just as he evacuated the last of the folks out of his office. And so
My
when he
God.
got home that night, he said, first of all, I didn't know if he was going to make it home, but when he finally showed
Right.
up, I decided that I was going to do everything I could to learn about the history, culture, language, religion of the people that would do that and make sure it never happened again. Fast forward less than 2 years
Wow.
later, I was sitting in Cairo, Egypt, studying Arabic and Middle East history. And that put me on a path to graduating, joining the U.S. intelligence community and doing spy operations around the globe. And here I
Wow.
am in freight.
I know. Well, you just skipped like a whole big chunk because, like, give me all those juicy details. That's crazy. So, did you get to travel like everywhere and see like all sorts of craziness when you were doing like the spy? Was it like legit like a spy like the movie or like
The
movies or?
the movies, there wasn't as many car chase scenes or being
Okay.
suspended from airplanes or helicopters over cities. But there's a lot of what Hollywood does get right in that. In fact, I think one of the best series out there for this is The Americans. For anyone that have seen
Okay.
it, it's Russian spies in the United States set during the
Yes.
Cold War. And if you kind of think about that as being an American spy overseas, where you're kind of living undercover but conducting these operations at night, that's very much real what it was.
Wow.
But yeah, I got to travel all over the world from the Middle East to Africa to Australia to Europe and back, and it was a fantastic time.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So, I know that's kind of how Genlogs kind of got started. Was that you're part of the surveillance and things like that?
Yeah, we used sensor satellites and other sources to bring an all source picture about a human target that I might have to go meet. And we had to make sure that, hey, was this human that I would want to go recruit to be a spy for the United States, basically to give us secret information? I had to know, hey, were they a double agent working for a foreign intelligence service?
Mm.
Were they a terrorist that might try to kill us? And unfortunately, I've had colleagues killed and injured in these double agent attacks where terrorists were
Wow.
luring CIA officers out, saying that they had information on Al Qaeda, in turn would then be trying to kill us. Or is this a crazy person, or is it a legitimate person? You kind of had those are the four potential outcomes.
Right.
And we had to figure that out in advance of putting a CIA officer's life on the line. So we got
Wow.
really good at using sensor satellites and what we were hearing from other sources to determine that. Fast forward to what Genlogs entered the freight market at a time where freight fraud and theft and all of that was at an all-time high. And a lot of that was brokers meeting carriers
Mhm.
virtually and having to make those same determinations.
Right.
Is this the type of carrier that's going to steal my freight, or are they going to deliver that on time and in full?
Right.
And trying to decide that in the absence of data is really difficult.
Yeah.
As you know. And so there, to me, there was just such a parallel of, we used sensor satellites and other sources, basically surveillance from all different shades to determine that. Let's go ahead and apply that same methodology to freight. And so internally as a company, we like to joke, we used to track terrorists, now we track trucks.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing at Genlogs.
That's so cool. I mean, I think I met you officially like a year ago, and then kind of like as you guys have blossomed, and then like everywhere I go now, I feel like I hear about you guys. So how did you even get from, like, what made you even think to get into freight? Like, did you know somebody that was like, hey, this is this mess? Like, why don't you fix this? Like, how did that even happen?
I knew nothing about it, nor did I ever even stop to think about it. From the computer I'm talking to you on, the clothes that I'm wearing, like nothing did I ever think, how did it actually get here?
Yeah.
And of course, looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, trucks brought it and ships brought it before that and rails and all the above. But I never stopped to think about it. Now, I left the intelligence community during COVID, and I went to work for a startup that was in the computer vision space looking at security cameras, but specifically to track humans across. So we were looking at helping law enforcement, security, and then some retail theft and retail analytics use cases. And it's interesting, one of our investors there was Ross Perot Jr. So the son of Ross Perot, who ran for president back in the day. Ross Perot Jr. runs a very large logistics firm called Hillwood, and actually runs this huge complex in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that has a BNSF facility called Alliance, Texas.
Okay.
And at one of our board meetings, he kind of piped up out of nowhere and said, hey, what you guys are doing on humans is really cool. Could you do the same thing on trucks? And there was just this like silence in the room. And my CEO at the time said, you know, I'm sure we could, but we're going to go ahead and stay laser focused on the humans piece of this.
Right.
Well, I tucked that in the back of my mind and didn't even know it was really there until I decided, hey, you know, I think I'm going to branch out, do something on my own. And I just remember Ross Perot Jr. asking, could you track trucks?
Right.
And I, you know, I would have thought that that was a solved problem in 2023 at the time. And of course, you did have great services out there like MacroPoint, Trucker Tools, you know, a bunch of others that were doing the tracking. But what I realized that Ross Perot Jr. was actually asking me is like, hey, I'm not a trucking company. I'm trying to figure out how to work with trucking companies in a more concerted and optimized way. Could you track all of the trucks on the roads so that I have access to all of this data in one place instead of having to request it one by one from a carrier when they're actually actively on a load? And I realized digging in the reasons behind that, not only from lead gen, sales, and all the above, but also from a defensive, like I don't want to be defrauded. And it was so clear to me that if you could watch all trucks on the roads at all time, that would be enormously valuable for a bazillion reasons.
Right.
And that led us down the path of all of a sudden deciding, hey, you know what? We are now a truck tracking platform at its core. And there's a lot more we do at Genlogs, but that's kind of the genesis of the story.
That's so wild. Yeah. So like I was a broker for 8 years prior to working with my care portal. And, you know, like, I guess being in logistics, you're like, it's hard before I was in logistics, I was in telecom. So it was like so weird for like when people don't know logistics, it's like, how can you even know it if you're not in it? So it's very interesting that you're like, okay, let me look at everything. So did you jump into like, did you go to like a brokerage and like try to understand the problem, or like, how did you learn more about the real issue that's out there?
You know, the first thing I did was to literally email, LinkedIn message anyone, the CEOs of all of the other freight tech companies, to basically say, is this a stupid idea? And are you guys already doing this? Because I was like, look, if it's already done, I don't want to waste my time.
Right.
And there was actually one of these freight tech companies, the CEO got back to me, hopped on a call, really gracious with his time, and ended by saying, Ryan, you know, that would be pretty valuable. And if you were able to collect this data, please come back to me. We'd be interested. And I said, okay. And then that's when I actually did I went to a few conferences back in the summer of 2023, met a few people in the space, met some brokers, and was asking them as well, hey, if we were able to do this and give it to you, would you be interested? Everyone was basically like, yeah, we'd be super interested. but high doubt that we were going to be able to do it. I
Right.
mean, it sounded a lot of capital intensive, operationally intensive, put these cameras all over major roadways. But I'm a big believer in, if you're going to reach the top of a mountain, you got to take the very first step. And so that's what my co-founder and I did. It was actually over Memorial Day weekend of 2023. We put our first sensor on the side of I-95 near Richmond, Virginia.
Okay.
And I remember dangling over these thorny bushes, as well as some barbed wire and all of this over the side of 95 with like trucks whizzing by our heads as we were trying to fasten this cameras onto this
Oh,
light
wow.
pole there. But we finally got it set up, and we finally had this algorithm set up that was separating all of the private vehicles in the roads. We were only capturing trucks. We were
Okay.
tying 3 images of the trucks together from 3 cameras. So we were collecting the front, side, and rear, and then extracting out all of the different types of data points you would want to know, from the cab number to the DOT MC number, the equipment types, all of that.
Yeah.
And I went back to that first Freight Tech CEO that said, yeah, come back to us if you can do it. And I dropped a day's worth of data on his lap and said, hey, this is what we're collecting. You let me know if it's valuable.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't hear back from him for 48 hours. And then all of a sudden I got an email in my inbox, and the subject line said acquisition offer. And it was an acquisition offer to acquire Genlogs at the time, which was
Yeah.
3 people, 1 sensor, just an idea. And they wanted to bring us on board with their company and roll this nationwide and go ahead and do it. And that's when I realized, like, oh, there's some value to this.
Yeah.
Because if based on that little bit of proof of concept, they wanted to take this on, I think we got to do this. And so I
Yeah.
convinced my other 2 co-founders, let's quit our jobs, let's go do this. And we went all in to do it.
Oh my God. That's like such a scary thing. Quit your jobs and just jump head in. But you're definitely right. Like, it was like whenever I first heard about, that was kind of like whenever I first heard about it was before you had cameras everywhere. It was just kind of like the major big hotbed areas. And I was like, oh, I don't even know how you'd get it. Like, how can you be everywhere? So now that you guys are like everywhere and you can see all the things, I'm like, this is just, it's wild. It is crazy. So go ahead.
No, I was going to say it is absolutely operationally intensive,
Yeah.
and then it gets even more sophisticated and difficult when you start to do this at a true scale. So when you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these out there, going to thousands and thousands of cameras everywhere, you think about not only the logistics of getting them out there and maintaining them, but then also, like, from a data perspective, how do you take terabytes of data coming back from 48 different states, and then now
Right.
soon moving into Mexico and Canada, and having all of that flying over networks, hitting through AI pipelines, in order to seamlessly come out the other side for a customer's perspective of just, hey, where does this truck run, this carrier run? Where are their trucks now? All of those questions that carrier sales reps, as you know, are very adept at asking, kind of like,
Yeah.
hey, where are your lanes? What kind of equipment do you have? Where do you run? Where are those trucks right now? To be able to now bring all of that data, a truly living, breathing map, it is not for the faint of heart. And this is where I really credit the team at Genlogs. A lot of them did come out of the intelligence agencies, and
Interesting.
we ran really high speed operations overseas where you make one misstep and people die. And then we kind of set them on, like, hey, go execute this nationwide plan to get sensors everywhere. That's going to require hundreds of different partners to say yes to us putting these sensors out there.
Yeah.
And let's go do it before anyone else even realizes that this is possible, and then be the one source for this. So I really credit the team for going from, like you said, where you heard it like, hey, it's really early, to holy cow, they're everywhere.
I know. And it did happen. I felt like overnight. Like, I mean, I was like, God, this guy's going to take 5 years to deploy all this, a minimum. Like, that's like working around the clock. But yeah, then now everything I see, I'm like, it's insane. I mean, it's very cool.
Yeah. And I remember every Monday morning at 7 a.m., I send out an email to my entire team that's a little bit of recap what we did last week and recap where we're going forward. And we were just about to hit this inflection point of starting to get more and more sensors out there. At the time, if you'll recall, it was probably like February of last year, SpaceX did their first big landing of their giant rocket right back on the pad. And I took this GIF of that happening and send it to my team to basically said, like, hey, SpaceX over the course of about a decade was able to figure out how to not only build these things,
Yeah.
launch them into space, but then bring them back and land it on like a postage stamp right in place. We're going to figure out how to get these sensors everywhere within a year. And
Right.
like the team was like, let's go. And they've absolutely delivered.
Dude, that's so crazy. I mean, it's literally just insane. So I guess tell me a little bit more about so I know GenLogs is great at sourcing carriers but there's even like a way to source shippers too, right?
There is. So we really take a really intelligence approach to everything we're doing. And we decided that it wasn't just going to be data from our own cameras. That was not going to be the end. That was just going to be the beginning of the data that we bring in. So if you kind of think about from the intelligence community perspective, you have CIA, which really does human intelligence operations. And that's like talking to people and getting clandestine information directly from a human. But that is augmented by what National Security Agency is collecting from monitoring telecommunications, emails, and others. Then you have National Geospatial Intelligence Agency that's looking at satellite imagery and bringing that in. You have different vectors coming in from all of the different intelligence communities to paint one big picture about, hey, what's happening in Iran? What is happening in Russia now? And so that is the DNA that we bring. And so we've actually augmented what we're collecting on the ground with our cameras with what we're observing from space, what we're observing from other large anonymized bulk data sets that we are bringing in. And
Okay.
if it touches trucks in any given way, we will grab that data, bring it in, and our data scientists are sitting there and stitching all of this data together in a rich tapestry of how freight moves across the US. That does allow us, like you said, to not only reveal where all 300,000 plus shipper locations are in the US, so we can help you find where all they are, but also you can click on any one of those and see their actual truck lanes based on that data we're collecting. And pretty soon, by the time this comes out here, probably mid-August, we will be adding data that we are collecting from other sources to then get at the equipment types that all of these shippers need. So is this a dry van, a flatbed, a reefer, a tanker? Like, is it a boat?
Wow.
You know, whatever you need, we're going to be able to not only, we're going to that, almost cracking the code here, hopefully in the next few months, of getting really specific load volumes. And by that, we have like percentages now, like, hey,
Okay.
10% of Pepsi's freight from Wichita goes down to Dallas. I want to be able to tell you that, hey, they move 300 loads a week, let's say.
Yeah.
And that allows existing brokerages to see what percent of wallet share they actually have.
Yeah.
That if you're moving 100 of those 300, well, there's 2/3 now available still up for grabs that you can maybe take. And we want to give that laser intelligence into a customer facing salesperson's hands so they can go out and just clean up.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we just added port intelligence to our repertoire now, which is all 300 ports in America. We can tell you who are all the beneficial cargo owners, aka shippers, receivers that use those ports, and where that shipment then goes inland. So we actually watch the container going from a port to a cross-dock facility, and then watch the 53-foot dry van coming out of that cross-dock facility and seeing all the way to the end destination. So we can actually track that Home Depot gets something, even though like they only see the 53-foot dry van load there. We're like, oh, but that actually was serviced by Port of Savannah. And then it was serviced by Port of Savannah coming from Europe here, that was furniture coming in or whatever it might be. We're stitching this all together and then giving that playbook right in the hands of our customers.
Oh my gosh, literally like mind blown. That is insane. Because as a broker, even as a carrier too, because as a carrier, because a lot of times shippers now want more of an asset base than a brokerage. So even like those big giant asset companies out there, like knowing, hey, I like, like you said, the 300 shipments. Hey, I have 100 trucks that can run this lane nonstop. Why don't I just go ahead and do that? Or, hey, I can maybe purchase more trucks because I know they got the lanes. And then I can, come to the customer and say, hey, I'm buying all these trucks. Can you use them?
You got it.
Yeah. I mean, really the prospecting list that you guys have is like endless. And like the information that I could get as a consumer is like, yeah, it's literally just mind blowing. I love your guys' product. I talk about it all the time.
Well, thanks, Danielle. It's been it's been great to get to know you. I just like wish I could talk all day about the cool work that that my team's doing. So this is really cool to have a platform to do so and kind of rave on them a little bit. I talked about even carriers or asset-based groups being able to get more, to get value from it too. And you're right, it isn't just brokers. We actually have most of the top 10 carriers out there are also customer of ours. Part of that is because they have assets go missing all the time, especially if they have large power only programs.
Okay.
They have like that, 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 trailer to truck ratio. A lot of those trailers go wandering off, and we help them track down. But on the flip side, we now also know, hey, what is all of the lanes that are in play for them, and who should they be better targeting to optimize their networks. In October, we're actually releasing our less than truckload intelligence layer. So that's even going down a step further, where we have taken the top 40 LTL carriers out there and we've uncovered who all of their customers are.
Wow.
And essentially
That's crazy.
Have that all consolidated now in one place, where you don't need to spend hours and hours prospecting now. Now it's just like solely competing on, can you compete on the quality and the cost here by bringing that together? Like, how well is your customer service? How well is your costs here? Because we're now giving you, like, you now know where all the shippers are.
Yeah.
And it's actually like both to the best carriers or the best brokers are going to be the winners here, because they are going to now know, I know who I can go after. If I go in with great quality of customer service and great costs, then I'm going to win every single time. And shippers, what we're hearing and getting the feedback is that they love it too. And they're actually asking brokers and carriers now, hey, are you a GenLogs customer?
Oh,
because
really?
they want to know, like, do you know what our network looks like? And do you know what the carriers out there look like, so that you can actually optimize our freight to go after quality carriers that are willing to haul those backhauls. And that's really where I'd love to see, when GenLogs is fully successful, we've eliminated backhauls as much as, or deadheads as much as possible by filling up those backhauls. And we've also eliminated the freight from being able to be put into a fraudster or thief's hand, because we're always helping connect a load that needs to go someplace with a carrier that needs to go someplace.
Yeah.
And that's where the future of GenLogs is really trending.
I love that. And fraud, of course, as you know, is like right up my alley. So I know, like, one of the posts, which you post all the time, one of the posts that you did, and it blew my, like, I showed my grandparents, I showed everybody this video. I'm like, you guys got to see what these guys are doing. But it was where you were like on a demo with a shipper or somebody. I don't know if it was you, and I can't really remember, but I think it was you. Was on a demo with a shipper, and they were like, yeah, we just got our load stolen like yesterday. Like, we know it's this truck. We saw it on our surveillance, but who knows where this guy's at? He's probably in Mexico. You're like, hold on. And then you're like, he was just spotted here 10 minutes ago or whatever. And then, like, they recovered the freight. I mean, just like as a recovery option too, because even like I was just on a big conversation last night with TIA's government affairs people too. And I was like, even if we prevent like the fraud, let's say all fraud gets taken away, we'll always have theft. Always. Like, there's retail theft. You always end up having something. So even if we do somehow combat fraud and we get in front of it and whatever, even like knowing, hey, I park my truck at a truck stop and I, use the restroom and then my truck's gone, I know I can somehow have somebody find it, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And this is really why last November we announced that we were going to help track down all lost, stolen, or missing equipment for the entire industry for free.
Yeah.
And we've absolutely delivered on that week in and week out. And we get, anywhere from up to a dozen requests for help a week now.
Wow.
That goes straight to our investigations team, who is a cost center for us, but really drives brand ambassadorship for the industry, because you don't need to be a customer of ours, but you can ask for help, and we'll turn around and be like, hey, here's your stolen, whatever it might be. Here's where we last saw it. And by the way, we'll go ahead and then we have a multi-person public sector engagement team now that will reach out to law enforcement on your behalf, connect with law enforcement, go track it down, truly get it back in your hands. And we will send you $0 invoice. Like, it's, it's the right thing to do.
Right. No, it is the right thing to do. I think you're definitely right. Cause I think so many people, especially like small brokers and stuff, like that happens one time and they're out of business. Like, not only do they have to pay for the loss, maybe they have the funds for that somehow, but then they lose that customer, or they at least lose the relationship with that customer. it just downfalls from there.
Yeah.
So I guess like getting into the fraud talk of things, where, I mean, it's kind of obvious like what all it does with fraud, but where do you see it, I guess, happening going forward with Genlogs? Like, what do you think in the future? What's your thoughts on all the things?
Yeah,
Fraud.
well, fortunately now I have about a year's worth of data and pattern recognition under my belt to really look and say, hey, how is GenLogs helping attack the fraud issue? How can brokers address this and avoid it? And then what does the future look like? And in almost every single case of fraud or theft that we've investigated, when we've actually put the DOT or MC number that the broker thought they were working with into our platform, it shows that they used to exist out on the roads, but they have not in the last 90, 30 days or whatever it might be, that there's a
Right.
certain time frame where they absolutely drop off. And if you kind of chart the sightings of a carrier in our data on a histogram over time,
Yeah.
you'll see that it's literally like you have them, and then boom, it drops off. And then
That's when they sold their MC
soon after,
and
exactly. That's when they sold their MC. That's when someone else 2 weeks later starts bidding on freight in a place where when the carrier wasn't out there on the roads, they were never there, or
Right.
they never had the type of equipment or whatever. And almost every single time that is the case.
Yeah.
And so really, like, we are developing these counter fraud signaling there that basically says, hey, this carrier did exist. They don't exist anymore. If you're looking up their DOT in our system right now, we're going to have this big glaring red flag, which is like, hey, don't book the freight with that carrier. It's just
Right.
like, don't do it. It's difficult, and I get it from a broker's perspective, because inspections may be so infrequent
Totally.
that it's difficult to tell, was it 3 months since their last inspection because it's just been 3 months? Or
Right.
is it 3 months because they're just not out there anymore?
Right.
And this is really where I think GenLogs is a differentiator, because we could tell you conclusively that carrier is out in the roads, still running, or they're not. And this gets into, therefore, where I think the industry needs to go. Brokers, by and large, are still, frankly, a little bit lazy and reactionary to, I got to move this load. I'm going to post it out on the load boards, and I'm going to just take the inbound that's coming.
Post and pray. Yeah.
And then that's where inevitably someone can like slip through the system. GenLogs turns it on its head, because if you look at an OD pairing, you're trying to get a carrier recommendation out of GenLogs, our algorithms are built to prioritize at the very top a carrier that is frequently and recently seen running that lane with the right equipment.
Yeah.
And if you want to go even further, you could say, and they are in the origin area right now. Like, I need them in real time. We have that capability.
Wow.
As a result, and then you could literally click one button, copy all emails, and then paste into Outlook or Gmail or wherever you are. And we'll automate even more of that in the future, where that you just do it just does it for you.
Yeah.
But for right now, you can go ahead and email 20 carriers that we say, hey, they're there, they're on that lane every day.
Yeah.
They're running flatbeds or dry vans, whatever it might be. And then you email them, and inevitably one or two of them are going to be like, yep, actually, we do have trucks in there. I'd love to take the load. Right off the bat, these are legitimate carriers. I mean,
Right.
we're seeing them every day doing the same thing. And fraudsters don't run the same lane every single day. I mean,
Right.
they just don't.
No.
And so it absolutely separates the chaff from the wheat. And you can now know that you're reaching out to reputable carriers,
Yeah.
rather than risking it with disreputable carriers by looking at more, inbound reactionary type. Okay, I guess this looks good on this platform. I guess we'll send it. And so, and this from the My Carrier Portal perspective. And by the way, we are imminently going to be releasing our network maps for carriers inside of My Carrier Portal for co-customers.
Very, very, very soon.
Yeah. So you guys whoever's listening to this and they're like, I'm already a GenLogs customer and I'm a My Carrier Portal customer.
Yeah.
You're going to have that protection by looking and saying, yep, they are there. They're regularly running great. Or, hey, they disappeared over the last 30 days.
Right.
Maybe that's a warning flag. But that's where I really think that we can work in concert with MCP and others out there to tell a more holistic story about what are carriers up to. And I hate when a carrier goes out of business. I hate to see it, because it's a difficult market out there.
Yeah.
But I hate it even more when that happens and it leads to a broker being defrauded and losing a key customer, that now that brokerage is at risk of going out of business now as well.
Right. Exactly. Well, and that's the biggest thing. Like it's funny because I was talking to somebody about how carriers, whenever they're selling their information, like we want to get out of the business, whatever, and they sell it, it's like you're kind of in on it in a way if you know things aren't being done. Like there almost needs to be like a rule book out there that, hey, if you're selling your MC, you should be having this done. Otherwise, you are in on it too, kind of, like
Yeah.
having a sense of responsibility. So it's going to carriers. I guess the only thing bad I've ever seen about Genlogs online is like a carrier being like, "Oh, you're watching my big brother like tinfoil hat, like you're watching my every move and freaking out about it." To me, it's like, well, there's Ring cameras everywhere, there's sensors everywhere. Like, okay, welcome to the world. I guess do you guys what's your take on that? Like, what do you like? Ideas the same way that I think, or what do you think?
Well, look, I'm actually empathetic to those. I think it's a very small vocal minority that
Yeah.
says a lot of this, but it's interesting having watched, especially as I am a prolific poster on LinkedIn, and having watched some of those that used to be more naysayers, now seemingly coming around to this concept of, you know what, it actually may not be a bad thing if Genlogs is making sure that brokers are calling me instead of tendering freight to the fraudsters on the load board. And that may not be such a bad thing, that brokers can look in the Genlogs platform and see that I'm a real carrier running on those lanes on a regular basis. And so in as many as, I would say, it's probably a 1-to-10 ratio for every one naysayer carrier out there. And I think over time, we're going to win them over.
Me too.
There are 10 other carriers that have emailed me saying, were it not for Genlogs, I wouldn't have been able to get freight because I didn't have inspections.
Right.
And we've seen over 20,000 carriers that are active on the roads that have never had an FMCSA inspection.
Yeah.
And if you actually look at the tail of kind of stacking up when those MCs were all issued, of course, it's like the most recent MCs it's the vast majority of those 20,000. And I think about it from the perspective of, let's say you are a brand new owner operator out there. You just went through the process of getting your CDL.
Yeah.
You've now leased a truck or bought it, and you're on the hook for those payments. And now you're like, great, I'm on the roads, I'm ready to roll. And broker after broker is saying, we can't work with you until you've been on the roads for 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
You've had that much authority time and you've had inspections. Conversely, Genlogs brokers, aka brokers that are using Genlogs, are able to say, hey, what's your MC? I'm going to throw it in. And then I'm going to verify that you actually have a real truck on the road. You're operating in these certain areas. You have the right equipment, all of that. And time after time, these carriers are getting freight into their hands 6 months to a year quicker by some of the largest freight brokerages out there than they would have before Genlogs.
Yeah.
And so we are trying as much as possible to be the Switzerland of data, as in,
And I
we will
100% agree. Yours is very more factual than any other platform. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not gonna make an assessment about, are you a good or a bad carrier? I mean, some of that is potentially self-evident in the out of service scores and the ISS and basic scores. But the bottom line is, like, all I'm gonna say is, yep, Acme Trucking was in Virginia on this day.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then a broker can make the decision, and 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a decision that actually benefits the carrier and not to their detriment.
Right. Well, and I think what's interesting, whenever those carriers have that issue, it's like, well, other brokers are vetting by wanting a picture of your driver's license or wanting a selfie, or, like, you know what I mean? I'm like, you're giving that information out. What is the difference between that and your actual truck? And it's not you doing it to prove it, because even that, it can be spoofed and faked, and all sorts of craziness can happen that way. So even as a broker, that was like, do I even trust this picture that's coming in, rather than, like you said, like, this guy's brand new on the street. And now that FMCSA has tightened their noose on brand new carriers and had, the legitimate ways of getting basically vetted as a brand new carrier, I almost think brand new carriers, as long as they can prove that they're really driving, is safer than anything else right now.
That's a interesting take that I've not heard before, but I actually agree with you that if the new ways to become a carrier on the road is more difficult and it's weeding out the fraudsters, then there's a new crop that's like, if I was a broker, I'd be looking at, what's the newest capacity onto the roads that we can build those relationships first before anyone else. And you're going to see those carriers on the roads first on Genlogs before you see them in inspections or other data.
100%. And you're building usually the brand new carriers because they're just desperate to get freight because they've heard so many no's. You can get your rates cheaper with them. You develop a relationship with them. You get really sticky with them. They can run your rates lanes forever. They'll communicate with you and they add more carriers or more drivers under them. And like you can grow with a carrier and have them be like I mean, like I've had like 3 times where I've had it where a carrier was like my homeboy. And like for a while I did postal freight. This was like 10 years ago, but I did postal freight. And like if your truck breaks down in the middle of the night for a postal lane, I mean, you gotta get it covered. Like their mail will always run. So I'm like blowing up people, like waking them up, like, please, I have a baby. And my kids are all grown, but I'm like, I have a baby, she's crying, please help me. Whatever I have to do to beg them to get their truck out of there. But that's where like a relationship like that will come into play. And I think there will be a huge shift in older carriers or like, almost like those like mid-level carriers, like when it's like everyone was waiting a year. Well, a year to 2 years just because they're a bad guy, that doesn't mean they're good, you know?
Yeah.
So I think having the newer registration plus being able to see like them actually on the road, I think that's a safer bet for you to grow with a carrier and get better rates and all the things. Like
Yeah.
that's where my head's at right now.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it's, I think that I applaud whether it's FMCSA, whether it's other tech companies that are putting greater controls in there. I'm all about, hey, what can the industry do writ large to
Yeah.
limit fraud and theft? And Genlogs, we always talk internally, like our goal is to keep bad actors out so the good guys can flourish.
Right.
And that's just what, at the end of the day, like I want the carriers to be successful. I'm trying to put more freight in their hands and over time, better freight by basically saying, hey, they're always Johnny on the spot and they're riding those lanes where they should be. They're keeping their equipment maintained, which you can actually tell a lot from our images as well, too, about the equipment, the deterioration, whether it's from their strap work on flatbeds, are there like creases or bowing in the 53-foot dry vans, like all of these different elements down to the like, did they just take the time to get a true vinyl DOTMC placard there?
Yeah.
Or are they rolling with like, chicken scratch on a piece of paper?
I've
all
seen
of
your
those
posts
things
on that.
Yeah. And all of those things like we see and anyone who's using our tool within 5 seconds can look at a carrier out there and make a human instinctual decision about yes or no. And I would say 99.9% of the time they're right. And so, I always love it when carriers are saying, I'm getting more freight because of you. And when brokers are saying, we avoided giving it to the bad actors because of you, from the My Carrier Portal side too, like that's just, you love to hear that.
Love it. I know. Well, and okay, 2 things. One funny story, whenever you brought up the pictures, I had a carrier. I was desperate. Like this was like produce season in Georgia, super hard to cover lane. I found like the worst truck I could, the safety rating was so bad. I'm like, just post and pray, like pray to God this gets loaded. Well, he shows up and my shipper sends me a picture. He's like, is this really the truck that you sent in? The guy's got duct tape holding his hood down and bungee cords. He's like, this is really what you sent in? I'm like, I was desperate. And I would have I would have no way of knowing that. But it's funny because I could have just been like, oh, and then be like, oh, maybe I should tell my shipper, like, hey, this is my only truck. Are you willing to do this or no? Can we laugh at this together?
Yeah. I mean, how powerful is that, though, to be able to send an image of the truck that you expect to come pick up because that's what you're seeing out there to the shipper in advance?
Yeah.
To say, hey, you can expect this truck. Here's the image. And to do that without having to ask the carrier for anything. From them. Yeah. And I think
anything you ask the carrier, who knows where that came from,
Yeah. That's exactly
I think that's huge.
It's a great story, though.
I know. Oh my gosh, it was so embarrassing. Like I just laughed and I was like, I'll take you out to lunch. I'm sorry because you're right down the road from us. But yeah, it was funny. I had one other thing I was going to bring up. I can't remember now. Well, we'll just kind of wrap it up, I guess. Anything else you want to talk about or bring up that I may have missed? Or
well, I mean, I always like to hear from your perspective because you're in the midst of it. Like you've been on the other side of it. You're now on the vendor side helping out. I mean, the anecdotes, like I don't know that Genlogs necessarily, other than new inbound of people having issues with stuff lost or stolen, we can kind of track what those trends are over time. But just, do you think we've reached peak fraud out there, or is it going to continue? And I'm just curious, like, when do you think that peak might be, given some of the procedures that FMCSA is trying to implement, some of
Yeah.
the tech out there. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay, that's a deep question. All right, let me think about this. So, do I think we've hit the peak? Yes. I think it has died down. I mean, in reality, it's really like 1% of all the carriers out there or all the loads that get picked up is bad actors. Probably less than that, less than 1%. I mean, at the end of the day, how much freight moves day in, day out, you really don't hear about that many thefts happening throughout the days. It's just when it does happen, it's so impactful. Now, 2 years ago, yeah, it was like through the roof. It was insane. I do think they get more and more, I don't want to say smarter, but they're kind of like one step ahead of us. Like they realize that we will find like for instance, in MCP, like we'll build like a tool like this and we're like, oh, we're going to stop so much stuff. And then they'll find a different way to do it. And you're like, oh my God, now we got to rethink the whole wheel. And then on top of before we even launch anything, we almost don't want to even tell the bad guys how we know that they're bad guys. But then our customers will call us and be like, well, why are you marking them bad? And you're like, we just know, okay? Don't tell them. But that doesn't work. So I definitely think we hit peak. I think the new things that are coming from FMCSA are going to be great. I think that they'll come up with ways to go around that. And mainly that's going to be with carriers being sold, selling their MCs and stuff. And what they're really preying on are the brokers that don't have tools, because there's still so many of them out there that have nothing, and they don't even have a process in place. And that's something that I was going to mention to you too, is like I almost should send you my SOP that I wrote up. That's very generic, but we can almost customize it to be like, have like a generic SOP. They can modify it to put their onboarding stuff in there, but then you can customize it to add, like you would search Genlogs when this, and this happens, and like have like a workflow for those who do have thefts. Like, because a lot of times a theft will happen or a fraud will happen, and you break down their process, and it's like my number 2 step in my SOP would have fixed, you would have avoided all of it. Like you just don't have a process in place. You don't know how to properly vet. So anyways, it would be interesting, like collaborate. I'll send you that and just have you, see if your team wants to send it to everybody who has a theft. Like you guys can tie your name to it or whatever. I just think industry wise, people need to learn what to do because they don't know how to vet.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. What's your take on it?
Well, I think it will always be a cat and mouse game. So I totally agree with you on that. I think that, if we've reached peak and you're looking at, instead of 1%, it's like the 0.9% or whatever, that's still happening. I think the problem will be the bad actors the price that they're willing to extract from that. Like they're just going to be more specific about, hey, what's the target we're going to go after?
Yes.
And if you are a broker where 50% of your top line revenue comes from you're like Samsung's person, and
Right.
they have 50% of your gross revenue is based on Samsung. And the bad actors are like, we're going to get one of those Samsung loads.
Yeah.
Well, that is a disproportional cost to the broker when, yes, it might be the one load out of the 100,000 that they ran that year was a Samsung load. But if that Samsung load is enough to cause Samsung to say, we're taking our business somewhere else, and that's 50% of your revenue walks out the door.
Right.
Like,
good luck.
not to scare people, but I am always like, look, unless you're batting 1,000, unless there's truly 0% fraud, then it's a disproportional, like even 1 in 100,000 could cost you so much. So I agree with you. Like you just need to make the investment there in the tech stack. You probably saw me post yesterday. There's a broker who in the course of 2 weeks or 3 weeks had 2 loads stolen. The second load was valued at 285,000. And like, they're not Genlogs customers. And we're kind of like, hey, in both of these, like you said, the SOP checks would have been like causing you to realize, I'm good. I'm going to not book with this carrier.
Right.
And yet they didn't have it. And now they're dealing with a $285,000 stolen load. And it's like, man, Genlogs is not that expensive. Like, you would have definitely had your ROI here in one saved load. And they're going to lose that shipper because that shipper now is like, look, you're not investing in the tech.
Yeah.
And I think
what do we
ultimately,
pay for?
Yeah. And I think shippers are getting smarter about this. And I think they are starting to ask about tech stacks during QBRs and during that RFP season. And they want to know, like, hey, is MCP on there? Is GenLogs on there? Is this? And like, if the answer is no to that, or you're trying to cobble it together with FMCSA data,
Oh, we do this. Yeah.
then they're going to go to the next person that has made those investments. And so I often, like, when we do have a customer that says GenLog's just a little bit outside of our price range right now, we'll try to work with them to see if we can make it work. But I also know that like given a long enough time frame,
Yeah.
they'll almost
see it, I
have
have
to.
to.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
like you know, it'll be the cost of doing business here to make sure that you can look after your shippers.
Yeah, I 100% agree. That's for any type of vetting program, onboarding, and of course you guys do, and even tracking. Period. I think it's going to get to the point where pallet tracking is going to be necessary. Especially on anything high risk, high value, it's going to be necessary. And those that don't do it will fall way far behind. Their freight will be targeted. And I think the fraudsters, their biggest thing that's coming, or it's been happening for a long time, but it's like way more mass numbers. Like you said, it's dwindling down, but they're hitting bigger numbers, is cluster theft. And that one's a really tough one to find because they run super legitimate. It's almost like one of my customers was saying that their driver, they're like, I went to dinner with this guy, like I know this driver, and then he's the one that he stole like 1 point something million dollars worth of freight, and he's like, I know him, how did this even happen? And no red flags in any system. And it's like the guy who they finally got the guy on the phone, he's like, what the heck, dude, like I know you. And he's like, yeah, I met these guys. They were telling me, at a truck stop or wherever, met these guys. They were telling me how I can make a bunch of money. As soon as you call me saying that there's some shortages, like I dipped, like I'm out of the country. You'll never find me. Good luck. And
Now
they're like,
that's
what?
a nightmare. Wow.
And that's the type of thing that's scary. It's like you don't know where it's coming from, but you need to have my biggest thing is you need to have like a system in place. So when that does happen, how you can kind of rework that and fix your process. Or if it's something like that, where it's like almost an act of God, almost like, what do you do at that point too? And then whenever you do have something happen, you go to your ship and you're like, look, this is what happened. You're very transparent. Like, these are my processes. Let's maybe work together. Maybe you know something I don't know, or maybe on your side, if you did this would help, or maybe I can help you by educating your workers. Like, what can we do together to protect ourselves? Because there are some people that I know that are like crossing T's, dotting I's, and they haven't had anything happen, but something like that can happen to anybody. So it's like, what do you do then?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
wild.
completely. Well, if it does happen and you're listening, reach
Yeah.
out to us. We'll help you track down where that all went. So
Exactly. Right.
yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. How can everybody reach you? How do they sign up for Genlogs? All that good
Yeah,
stuff.
two things I'll say. I mean, I'm very active on LinkedIn, just Ryan Joyce, GenLogs. You'll find me. I pretty much accept everyone who is trying to connect, unless you're trying to sell me services. Then you'll kind of linger forever in my non-accepted ones. No, I'm just joking. Just
Yeah.
reach out. But for everyone else, go to genlogs.io, genlogs.io. Upper right-hand corner, we have two buttons. One is find lost assets. That's if you have that issue, you need to track, hey, where did my truck, trailer go? We'll help you track that down so you can report it right there. The other one is book a demo. It's pretty self-explanatory. We have a great team that'll hop on, show you the entire breadth of what we do, from better carrier sourcing to customer sales calls to compliance, all the above. We have a whole lot more that we're adding between now and the end of the year. So it's just going to get really fun really quickly here between ports and LTL and some of the deeper compliance and vetting. So reach out. You'll get the latest and greatest. But Danielle, it was a pleasure to join you.
Yeah, thanks
today.
so much.
This is awesome. Long time coming.
I know, right? Well, keep me posted on all the updates so that I can do updates on this too. Because I think this is my tell me everything part, but I do my Frog Girl Fridays. So it'd be nice to just throw in some new things that are out there and whatever. So keep me posted on that and we'll keep sharing all your stuff. But I appreciate you coming on, and bye everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Tell me everything. Everything.
Tell me everything.